The disappearance of third places has been talked about a lot, extensively even. These last few years, it's been a big subject for people who are just trying to find a community and find a place where they belong, because it's been harder and harder to cultivate and create those places or have those places to go to. You can kind of see the negative effects it has on us as a society, especially younger folks, with all the negative things that are happening and not allowing you to find a place where you can go to just be. That has affected people in general, but has anybody even looked into how this has affected the dating pool and our reliance on dating apps?
Dating has also been a big issue as well. The big issue of people finding, the correct people, and all these dating apps that are being out there that are being used are kind of negatively affecting everything, because it's hard to find people that you actually want to find, and it's hard to find people that you'll like, and all of these things. Like, dating has also been a huge issue. That has been talked about a lot, whether it's videos or anything like that. But I don't think anybody has really connected the two and made the connection between the lack of third places hurting the dating pool, hurting the ability to meet these people that you're out, essentially only creating less places for you to run into, create actual connections and create actual people that are like-minded. This is a big part of why dating has been so hard. It also leads into the part where I'm going to talk about kind of the dating apps and their role in this as well, and how they've kind of negatively affected everything, and how they're kind of going on a downward spiral as well. But just to stick to the main thing right now, third places has negatively affected dating. Just kind of like that. You want to go to places where you frequent other people who are like yourself or open, or whatever. It's loitering. Loitering's the big thing. Like, there aren't places to loiter, and third places were those places to loiter. So it's harder to be in those places. Meeting people and doing all these things is hard enough, on its own, let alone taking away meeting grounds for people to happen, you know? Running into somebody that you could potentially like and be a partner of is so hard compared to what it was in the 2000s, 2010s even. That's why, that times like that is so hard, because you don't frequently run into people that are just around. Most people are going to places because they have something there or whatever, and not to just hang out. There aren't a lot of places that you can just hang out without having to pay money. With all of that kind of taken off, like, all of the lack of third places it didn't just happen, immediately, like I said. End of 2010s, going into the 2020s, it became a big thing. And the pandemic just, expanded it and accelerated that. So with that, what do you need? Well, obviously, we're going to need apps to kind of meet other people. And that's when, dating apps and things like that kind of really took off. And with those kind of apps taking off, we became more reliant on said apps to create those connections, to create those friendships, to create whatever we're trying to create those social interactions that we aren't getting on a normal, basis that we would have in the past. It has kind of led me into the rise and downfall of these dating apps, and what has kind of spurred the negativity towards dating apps from when they first started. Late 2010s, dating apps were very useful, where they were something that created those interactions organically, and actually were legit and not trying to just stick around to stick around. These apps were trying to help people find other people for whatever you were looking for, whether it was a quick hookup like Tinder, or something short term like Tinder, or maybe something a little bit long term like Bumble. Maybe you were looking for an actual partner, an actual relationship. Bumble helped with that. And then Hinge came in towards the late 2010s as well. And Hinge was the exact same thing. They had an ad that they put out that was like, we're meant to be deleted. And back in those times, they kind of were. They were an app that you used to find other people, whether it was friends, somebody that you just liked, or you just wanted to like, or whatever, whatever kind of relationship you were looking for. Hinge was kind of that app back in the day, and it really did help you find that. And going into the pandemic, it added to it a little bit as well. It got more and more popular, because people couldn't go anywhere, and by the time people were able to get out and we're all outside again, these apps were really how we dated. You know, it was really moving into a sphere of how we dated. And it had a good reputation. Hinge, Bumble, all these kind of, apps kind of had a pretty good reputation. Hinge was becoming the top dog, and it had a great reputation in the early 2020s. And then, that changed when, Hinge became more and more, wanted to keep you on the app. As soon as people started to figure out that, they're putting good people behind a paywall, and you can't just like people, unlimited, or you can't just like people that, were attractive to you and all this stuff. When people started to find out about an algorithm and all these things, that's when things started to change and make enemies of the people. These apps started to make enemies of their users and of people in general. Where, yeah, no, I don't have, no, I'm not going to use this app. I'm not going to use a dating app, or I hate this app that I'm using because I can never find anybody, and all the people that I find are nothing that I'm looking for, and it's just making dating harder, if anything. There was a time where things really changed where it became where the apps were helping to they became kind of a detriment, made people feel bad, a really negative outlook on things. That happened pretty quickly. That change happened pretty quickly, which is hilarious. These apps became kind of enemies of the state. People really have started to dislike them, and now these days now it's totally like that. Everybody's always complaining about how much they hate these dating apps, and like there's no real deep pauses that they're doing. They're just creating a lot of negative reactions. Obviously, some, this is not a broad brush over every user. Obviously, there's, people have found positives, and even I had used it in the past and in a positive. So they were positive to these things, and everybody's not having a negative reaction with the app, but the majority are, and the majority are finding it harder to find people that they actually like. It has kind of led to the negative downturns of the apps these days. A perfect example of this is Bumble. Bumble, in the beginning of, when it started, was cool. It was good. Everything was good. But in the 2020s, they've struggled, mainly because Hinge has taken off. But then also at the same time, like, it's just Bumble isn't a good place to find people. It's gotten worse. And they have realized that. So in early 2024, they decided to make a change, got a new CEO, rebranded, made men be able to kind of say the first thing as well, because the just allowing women was, I guess, not really working. And so they allowed men to kind of make the first move as well. So allowing both parties, kind of like every other app. And then they revamped their page, and there was this whole thing. I remember articles about it. I remember videos about it, about people talking about, how Bumble has changed and how they're trying to make these new adjustments to revamp their product and their app to make it more friendly. I don't even know. But I do remember this whole thing, and it's looking back at it now is actually kind of hilarious, because now in the beginning of 2025, they are kind of reverting back. They are bringing back a former CEO, and they're kind of changing their philosophy again. They're changing this whole thing where maybe what we were doing before wasn't good. Maybe we should change back. It's hilarious to me because it's just proof that these apps have no idea what they're doing either, and they're trying anything that they can, because the negative wave of these apps don't work, and this is just an algorithm, and you're just matching people up with certain people and not allowing other people to meet other people, has kind of affected the outlook on how people look towards these apps, and there's a lot of just deleting it and re-downloading, and this whole thing, like, that has become a thing. But eventually people are going to move away completely. People are going to look towards the outside and trying to create some connection with somebody at some type of place and at a hobby that they like. People are going to turn away from these apps, and it's kind of already happening. It first starts with a negative connotation towards it. Once people start, you bring up Hinge or you bring up these apps, and you're like, ugh. If that's people's initial reaction towards even mentioning it, which kind of is now, it will make a turn where people will just be like, all right, well, we'll just not use it anymore. And these apps are realizing that, and they're trying to make a turn. Nothing has really worked from what I've seen, but it's hilarious that they're going to do anything they can. Bumble is an example of this, where they're making any concession or trying to do anything to drum up some business or create to keep that business that they once had, and it's not working. Even with Hinge at the top, they're all of these apps are all in the same kind of bucket where this isn't going to last much longer, and it all goes back to once people have a third place to go to, once we kind of get to, if I don't know if it happens, but if we ever get back to pre-COVID times and the where third places are more abundant and we have the abilities to create a community at these different places, or just be able to kind of go to different places, people will immediately look away. I think now people are doing that. They're looking to friends to create relationships. They're looking to, work. They're looking to all these other, places that you frequent, your job, your workout, the things that you do constantly when you're in a routine. They're looking at those places as possible connections. More and more people are meeting people that they met through work, or they met through a hobby, or they met through a friend. More, I think that has become more of a thing, and more people are trying to do that again. These apps will become less useful, less people will do them. I can actually see that happening. And it's funny because we're not going to less technology or anything like that. We're going to more. We're going to AI. We're doing all these things. Once all of that becomes prevalent and fake and not real and artificial things become more prevalent, people are going to revert back and go the opposite way into finding people that are real and doing it in real life. Because the more fake things are around your life, the more you hold on to reality and real things and real connections more and more. More people will seek that out. People will start seeking those connections and things out more often, and will look further away to artificial things. And it'll be a great day when that happens, because then the cities and the world will have to accommodate how people are kind of moving. So it's interesting, and I'm excited for that movement to kind of happen, because those are the best. Those are the best. Anyways, let me know what you think. Do you think there's a connection between lack of third places and the poor dating situation, and what do you make of the poor apps of dating apps, and their poor kind of usage now? Like, is it an algorithm? Is it something else? What do you think? Like, subscribe, follow me here on these different socials, and I will see you in the next video on Monday.